did you get the information on the, like how much that you used this morning?
I read.
All right. So our word of the day today is the word hypothesis.
Oh, it's like a thought. Hypothesis.
It is like a thought. Yes. Dwight, would you like to tell us what a hypothesis is? Yeah, so it's like a guess or a thought. Yeah. An educated guess?
Prediction.
A prediction, right. So usually we use the word hypothesis within a scientific context, right? We think of scientists developing a hypothesis and then they conduct research or conduct an experiment to test that. But really all it is it's an educated guess, an educated theory, or a thought, right? You think, if this happens, then this might. If I do this, if I consume caffeine, then I will have more energy, right? That could be a hypothesis. If I eat lunch, then I will be full the rest of the afternoon, right? Could be another hypothesis. All right, so the synonyms that we have theory or a guess, right? It's something we come up with. It's something not necessarily concrete, but can we think of other synonyms that we could use? Maybe a theorem, although that's kind of long theory. Let's see, other synonyms. A thought, yeah. Prediction, that would be a good one for us. Or, I'm sorry, not Doris, all right. Prediction. Can anyone think of others?
Let me.
Mr. Miller, do you have one?
I'll look it up real quick. See if I find something that looks good.
For our synonym, we're still looking at.
Supposition, speculation.
Speculation, I think that would be.
Yep.
Right, again, it's not necessarily concrete. It's more of a thought. You're predicting. You're guessing at what might happen.
Concept, idea, opinion.
Yeah, all those would be good. All right, then for our antonym, we have fact. Right? Remember, because a hypothesis isn't necessarily a fact. A fact would become opposite, or reality. True statement. All right, and then what do we think about for part of speech? It's a noun, right? It's a thing. Something you have. You create a hypothesis, right? On the word of the day. I believe we will have a quiz on the word of the day. All right. And so then for our sentences this week, right? Last week we did complex compound sentence. This week we're doing a semicolon sentence. Okay, so the only thing that we're going to do here, Mr. Miller, if you want to pull up. So with your semicolon sentence, all we're looking for is you have an independent clause here at the beginning, a sentence that can stand on its own. Then you have your semicolon, and here we're going to be using either the word however or therefore. Okay, so either the word however or therefore will go in the middle, followed by a comma, and then you have a second independent sentence, a second sentence that can stand on its own. Right, so it's the same thought as a compound sentence where you have two independent ones conjoined in the middle, but just for our middle we're using a semicolon and then either the word however or therefore. Yeah, Austin?
So the first part can stand on its own?
Yep, so both thoughts can stand on their own, right? Same as the compound, just the way that we're combining them is unique to this. Okay? So if we look like the sentence here, when I went to the pizza restaurant, I was certain that I could eat an entire pizza. It's an independent sentence, an independent thought. Then we have our semicolon and the word however. After 4 pieces, I realized that my hypothesis was wrong. Right? After 4 pieces, I realized my hypothesis was wrong and stand alone. All right, and then Chloe, would you mind hitting the lights, please? All right, and then for our sentence context today, psychologists, they're doing this study about what people, are they more likely to experience happiness from a material good or from an experience? Okay, so think about like for I'm sorry Doris, this was the same sentence context we just used, but Anyway, so think about like for a gift, right? Would you rather get like a material good, like a new pair of shoes, or would you rather get like an experience, like a vacation or a trip, right? So that's what psychologists are wanting to look at. Let's see. There's some irony in this predicament, whether you would take a material good or an actual experience, right? Because we have more free time now than we had in previous decades. As automation continues to improve, we're having to do less and less work. It's easier for us now. You can get like a Roomba, right, where you used to have to vacuum the floors. Now you can get a Roomba and it'll do it for you. You can get a dishwasher and it'll do things for you. So we have more free time. So we're kind of in this predicament where we don't enjoy our free time as much as we used to, so we may be less likely to want that experience, right? Because we have these wealth of times, right? And then there's another problem is the cell phone addiction, right? How many of you would say you're addicted to your cell phones? None of you? I would, then my hypothesis would be that that's false, right? I find myself being addicted to my phone. I'll put it away, and then after 10 or 15 minutes, I'm like, hey, I should check my phone. Right? And it's this little urge, it's this like need to always be, then like I'll pull up like Facebook or something or Instagram or whatever, and it's like this is the same as it was 15 minutes ago. Why did I check this? It's because I'm addicted. I need that that hit of my phone, right? So what do you guys think is the average amount of time that people spend on their cell phones? 5 hours?
12 hours.
12 out of a 24-hour day? 8 hours? Say where is here? So those are all good guesses. The average time, let's see.
I think it's in that second paragraph, maybe.
Second paragraph. Oh, here we go. 3.5 hours. So 3.5 hours a day spent on our devices, right? So think about all the experiences that you could go out and have, but we're spending that time on our devices. All right, so we're just going to use that as our sentence context. Think about whether you would rather get a gift, whether you'd rather get like a material good or an experience. Which one would you rather have? How has the changes in our lifestyles maybe affected that? Or you can use like the cell phone addiction, right? Like, do you find yourself using your cell phone a lot? Do you think you do more than that 3.5 hours? Are you above the average or below the average? Okay, and remember we're doing the semicolon sentence, same as a compound, just with a semicolon, and either however or therefore. Questions about the corrections? Yeah. Yeah, and do you have a completed word of the day sheet? Oh, thank you. Is this your old one? Yeah, thank you. All right, once you're done with your sentence, go ahead and share it with the person in front or behind. Share it with a neighbor.
That's pretty much what I thought about it. IDs. I spend time on my phone.
Okay. So other screen time is your prior.
I don't really use my phone for a lot of communication.
Use it as an actual phone.
Yeah, I use my phone as a phone, and I use that extra time for gaming and grinding Call of Duty.
Which Call of Duty you play.
Modern Warfare.
All right, does anybody have a sentence that they like to share with the class? One they think is really, really good. Dwight, do you have a sentence you'd like to share? No. He has a good one? You don't have a good one? All right. Well, then let's go ahead and put those away. So we're not going to volunteer our friends to share. That's not cool. Real quick, though, I did, so we had that discussion. We had that discussion post from the Children's March last week. There are still a few of you that you just might not have been here on Wednesday when I signed it. So you still have time or an opportunity to turn that in. But as an overall class, I thought we all did a very good job. You guys really got like the key concepts out of the video that I wanted you to know. So I thought we did a good job with that. And then so today we'll be starting like a two-part thing. We're going to be looking at the cultures and the people groups of Mesoamerica, right? We're going to be doing a little anthropological study, a little anthropological research that we're going to be digging into today and Wednesday. Tomorrow you guys will have a quiz over race. This one will be another round of accumulation, right? So this one will be chapters 3 and 4. Okay, there is I believe is it a Quizlet or a Kahoot for chapter 3?
There's a Quizlet.
There's a Quizlet for chapter 3 that you guys can utilize to kind of refresh some of the content before we take the quiz tomorrow. And then Wednesday we'll be continuing this anthropological research that we're going to be starting today. And then Thursday we're going to do a brief discussion over race. We're going to just be discussing chapter 5, as well as you guys will have another map quiz. Okay, so this map quiz, it'll be over Central America and the Caribbean. We'll go over that on Tuesday, so we'll introduce you guys to that, and then take the quiz over it on Thursday.
So a week from this Thursday?
No, this Thursday.
Oh.
Map quiz.
Yeah, the map quiz. It's just Central America and the Caribbean. Okay, and then Friday is like a real short day. It's only like a 20-minute class, so we'll just be doing a short story. We'll be reading a short story in class. Doris? Why is it a short schedule? Because it's a school improvement day. So you guys will get done at 11:30, and then for the rest of the afternoon, teachers will have meetings. And it's like they meet together in like content groups and by grade and just ways that teachers have a lot of extra stuff. I've never been to one, so I don't know exactly what all we'll be doing.
Are you
but
going to that one?
I think I am, yeah.
All right.
Unless I don't have to, then I might try to.
Let's get out of it.
Yeah. But yeah, so 11:30. I think it's like 22-minute class period, so we don't have a whole lot that we can get done. All right. So to start, we're just gonna briefly introduce the topic of anthropology and of Mesoamerica. I feel like we probably don't know a whole lot about those things, so we're just gonna do a brief discussion on those, and then we'll get you guys started with your research groups. Sound good? All right. So if you go ahead and get out your notes. It might be helpful for you to take some notes. It's like just a handful of slides. Okay. All right, so today we're going to be getting this kind of research project, this look at Mesoamerica, and we're going to be doing it. We're going to be utilizing the discipline of anthropology. Okay, does anybody know what anthropology is? It is a store. Yes, they sell very, very expensive millennial clothes and candles and smelly stuff. My wife loves it. I go in there, I'm just like, this place is absurd. The cheapest thing is like $50, and it just smells weird. But anyway, okay, so anthropology, this is kind of what I envisioned, right? Even for me, anthropology is a fairly new discipline, something I'm learning more about. But essentially, anthropology is the scientific study of human societies and cultures and how they develop. Okay, so an anthropologist is part historian, they're part sociologist, they're part psychologist, but it's all in an attempt to understand how societies and cultures grow and develop. Okay, they seek to understand the complexity of how humans live, both in the present and historically. Okay, so you can still become an anthropologist today, right? We often think that this is something you have to be studying the past, but there's many culture groups that you can go out and you live with these people, you study these people, and it's all seeking a central question, right? How do these people live? How did their society develop? What influences their society? What influences their culture? And the primary avenues through which one undergoes an anthropological study is you can use archaeology, okay, so the digging up of. So you think of like an excavation of an old city, You go and you're looking at the artifacts, you're doing the digging, and you're getting those primary sources, those first-hand things, and you're using archaeology is one central tenet of this discipline. Another would be participant observation. Okay, we recently just talked about this in sociology with the participant observation. This would be an anthropologist who maybe goes and lives with a particular group. So imagine you want to study a culture that lives in the Amazon rainforest, right? If you take the participant observation route, you go and you live with those people, right? You interact with them. You spend a lot of your time asking them questions. Maybe you start to dress like them, you eat like them, you attend their religious ceremonies, and you immerse yourself within the culture. You become one of them as a way to study them. And then you also use primary source analysis, right? So looking at written records, looking at artifacts, trying to always understand how human societies and cultures develop and grew. So this is kind of the mindset that we're going to be in, right? This is the hat that we're going to be wearing as we do our research on the people of Mesoamerica. We're thinking and acting like not archaeologists, like anthropologists. Okay, and then what is Mesoamerica? Has anyone heard of this term before? This term Mesoamerica? Yeah? Luke? So essentially, Meso just means like the middle, right? So we're thinking about the middle America, the land between North America and South America, right in the middle, where present-day Mexico, Guatemala, Honduras, that area, okay? So right in here is what we call Mesoamerica. And what is so important about this area is that it is a cradle of civilization. Okay, does anybody know what that term means? Cradle of civilization. Kind of? What do we think it is? Marianne? Mhm. Yeah, civilizations. Exactly. So this is a place where civilizations originated. Right? We often think of, there's like three main cradles of civilization. There's the one in the Middle East, between the Tigris and the Euphrates River. This is where the ancient people of Sumer come from, and then they spread into Egypt and the Indus River Valley. That would be one cradle of civilization. There's ancient China along the Yellow and the Yangtze River. This would be another place where civilization sprung up. And then we have one in the Americas, in Mesoamerica. Right? So this is one of the three locations in the world where writing was independently developed. They independently created their own writing style, and that influenced the rest of the Americas. And so that is why it's such a key central component, right? We don't often think of this. When we think of civilizations, we think of Mesopotamia and of China. And so Mesoamerica kind of gets left to the wayside, right? It's kind of the unforgotten. We don't know nearly as much about them as we know about some other groups. But within this area, there are three central peoples, three central civilizations that we're going to be studying. Right? You might have heard of some of these people. They're the Olmecs. Okay, this is the oldest group. Next would be the Mayans. Okay, they came kind of in the middle. And then the tail end, the last one we're going to be talking about are the Aztecs. Okay, now I would assume, yeah. So the Incas, we'll cover them when we talk about South America. Right? So for right now, because that's a great point, because the Inca, they're perhaps the greatest of these three, but we'll cover them when we get down to South America. Right? So again, that's a great question. We're only looking at basically Central America, right? This land we call Mesoamerica. And so here's just a quick map of, you can see where these people lived, right? So the Olmecs being the oldest, here along the coast. Okay, and we'll go through them. So the Olmecs, this is the first major civilization of Mexico. This is the oldest group of the three. They were the first ones to arise. They're often remembered. They carved these giant stone heads. This is one of the primary artifacts that an archaeologist would have done. This is archaeological work when you're looking at what is left behind. Okay, they inhabited the land around the Gulf of Mexico. So this land in here, around the Gulf, this is present-day Mexico. And they lasted from around 1600 BC to around 350 BC. So this is a span of over 1,000 years that these people lived, right? That this civilization flourished. How long has the country of the United States been around? About 250 years, right? So think of how much longer this civilization existed than the United States has even been around, right? An extremely long time. And these people, they were contemporaries. Do we know when I say contemporaries, do we know what that means?
Same like time as.
Exactly. Same time period, right? So the Olmecs, they lived at the same times as the ancient Egyptians and the ancient Greeks. Right? I think we're probably a little bit more familiar with them, so we're going to try to link it. We're going to do that with the others, right? So same time as the ancient Egyptians and the Greeks, just to give us some perspective. Right? The next ones, the Mayans, they're more down here, and it's called the Yucatan Peninsula. Right? So they lived, they're a highly sophisticated civilization, and they lived in southern Mesoamerica. So if we go back to the map over here, it's southern Mexico, and then down through Guatemala and Honduras, and a lot of the other Central American countries. They came after the Olmecs. They arose after the Olmecs fell, and they built a lot of their stuff. They utilized the groundwork that the Olmecs had laid down, right? They built off the previous innovations, and they lasted from around 300 CE to 900 CE. Okay, it used to be that we did BC and AD. Now the standard as far as academics is BCE, which stands for Before Common Era, which that is the equivalent of the old BC, and now CE just stands for Common Era, and that takes the place of AD, right? So this is 300 to 900 CE, so about 1,000 years ago, I'm sorry, not 1,000 years ago, like 1,600 years ago. So they lasted for around 600 years, and they were around the same time as ancient Rome. So when ancient Rome was up and flourishing, the Mayans began and then went through the Dark Ages, right? This time after Rome fell, if we're looking at it in the context of European history. And then the last one would be the Aztecs, right? These people that they live in south central Mexico. They established the city of Tenochtitlan, which is present-day present-day Mexico City. So very prominent in the history of Mexico. But they are the last great civilization of Mesoamerica, and they are defeated by Cortez and his Spanish forces, right? So after Columbus sails to the New World, many other explorers start to come over from Europe, and the Aztecs are they're the ones that greeted Cortez, right? And he famously overthrows them, defeats them after smallpox and various other diseases had already started to decline the empire. Again, they lived in south central Mexico. And they were the shortest of the three, right? The Olmecs were the longest lasting, the Mayas were in the middle, and then the Aztecs, who knows how long they could have continued on had it not been for the Spanish, but it was from around 1300 to 1500 CE Common Era, and they're contemporaries of the late Middle Ages, right? So this last period of European history, and then the Age of Exploration, simply the time when Columbus and Magellan and Cortez and all these other explorers were out learning more about the world. Okay, so that's just a brief rundown. We're just to highlight each one of these three, and these are the groups that you guys are going to be doing your research on, your anthropological research on. Okay, so real quick, what we're going to do is we're going to number off. We're going to get into small groups, and you guys are going to be working within your group to do the research. Right, so let's go ahead and we're going to count off by 4s. And then we'll split you up, and then we'll get in and do the nitty-gritty of the stuff. Sound good?